Taylor Frankie Paul was the Bachelorette. And now it's yanked because of the video we posted. They have shot the entire show. ABC is going to be out an enormous amount of money. Mark, we broke a huge story this week at TMZ, Taylor Frankie Paul, and not just the video of her assault, where you actually see one of her children get hit by a bar stool, in the middle of this rage. But we broke story after story during the week before we posted that video of all of the things that happened to her. That video is the basis of a criminal conviction for which she is currently on probation. And her probation ends in August. But there was another incident 3 weeks ago, and prosecutors have now started looking into it as a possible probation violation. She could end up going to prison if they violate her probation because she pled guilty to felony aggravated assault. So aside from all of the drama with the Bachelorette being canceled and everything else, her freedom is on the line because of everything that emanated from this video. And that's just one of many legal consequences from what we have now seen.
So one of the things that people a lot of times don't understand when they're pleading guilty is that for the prosecution, they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a heavy lift. And it's the highest standard we have. But once you're on probation, it's tantamount to probable cause for a probation violation in most cases. And that's big. I jokingly say, but it's not that far from the truth. Is my client breathing? And when you have the kind of cascade of bad things coming out, it is really, really a challenge. I feel for whoever's representing her. That tape has the same feel to me as a Ray Rice style tape, where once you see it, you can't unsee it. And by the way, if that tape had just been, you mentioned, if it had just been between her and her significant other, that would be one thing. But when a child gets in the crossfire, that's where it becomes prosecutors are unforgivable.
Not just in the crossfire, but once the child is hit by the bar stool, she doesn't go and help the child. She continues going after him. So we should say 3 weeks ago, according to Dakota Mortensen, she attacked him both at her house and in a car. Now, she says the opposite happened, but that is why they're looking at the probation violation. I don't know if you know this, but we reported earlier in the week that they had actually said to her more than a year ago, "We will take you off probation now." And she said, "I don't want to go off probation. I want the structure and keep me on it." So it was initially a 3-year probation. They were willing to take it off, but she didn't want it. And because of that, she's now on the grill.
Right. And a lot of times, if you saw all the stuff that surrounded this, there were allegations of sobriety, lack of sobriety, as you often find. And one of the things about probation, one of the things when we used to have a very successful kind of drug court in LA County, for instance, is you have a probation and the probation is looking at you. There used to be a judge by the name of Tynan. Judge Tynan used to operate a drug court in the criminal courts building, and he would keep you on probation because it did give you the structure. It was helpful. It was something to kind of having the sword over your head at any one point. And it's admirable on one sense, as you said, that she did not kind of willingly go to just shirk herself of that. But that acceptance of responsibility, ironically, is now what's got her in the crosshairs.
Yeah. So I want to get into what I consider the more interesting legal fallout here. So she was the Bachelorette, and there were a number of male contestants vying for her love. Many of these contestants quit their jobs or gave up a promotion or some kind of financial opportunity to go on for the show for as long as 3 months. They put their lives on hold to go on the show, relying on the fact that the show would air. They would benefit in various ways from being on the show. And now, 3 days before the show is supposed to air, it's yanked. And it's yanked because of the video we posted. And really the underlying criminal conduct of Taylor Frankie Paul that led to this guilty plea. This episode of Two Angry Men is brought to you by Incogni. It's shocking to find how much of your personal information is online, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people search sites collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial information, all that. They sell and share it publicly without your consent. Incogni is here to put an end to that. It's basically a digital hitman for your data. It hunts down all the shady sites and poof, your personal information disappears. So let me talk about the benefits of Incogni. I get all sorts of spam that clutter up my email box and dozens of robocalls for sure. Incogni can actually delete my data before it ends up in the hands of spammers. On top of that, if you care about the law like we do, you probably value public records and transparency. The issue, legal information that used to be accessible in context is now scraped by data brokers, repackaged, and sold. And that can affect hiring, insurance, or even search results. Incogni uses private laws like GDPR and CCPA to contact data brokers to request removal of your information from commercial databases. It gives you full control over how your name appears online, because legal systems should protect your rights, not turn your past into someone else's profit. So you can get 60% off annual plans at incogni.com/angry with code ANGRY at checkout. It's risk-free. Incogni offers a full 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not completely satisfied. So live free from dangerous spam with Incogni. That's incogni.com/angry for 60% off annual plans. So I'm going to make, I want to make an argument to you. Now,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that I'm advocating this. I'm just kind of raising this as an argument. What if one of those contestants files a lawsuit and says, I'm out money and I want either ABC and or Warner Brothers Discovery, which produced the show, to pay me. And here's why. It was readily available to Warner Brothers and to ABC. That
Available meaning they were on notice of what had happened.
let me tell you how much
Legal.
they were on notice. They're supposedly doing vetting of everybody, especially her. And they're doing vetting. So how hard is it to go to a court file, which we did, to find out that she had pled guilty in 2023? But I'll do even better for you. They didn't have to even go to the court file. They could have watched her show, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, because they talked about it on the show. So it's on it's on television that this happened to her, yet they ignored it. And we have sources involved in the production of this show who are telling us this was a case of willful blindness at best, but they wanted to attract a new, bigger audience, and they ignored some of this stuff. So if that lawsuit were to be filed by one or more of the contestants, how would that fly?
let me tell you something that's fascinating that you brought this up. Yesterday, I was talking with Bethany Frankel. Bethany was the original impetus for what she labeled the reality reckoning. And we were talking about this very subject. And years ago, she kind of lit this fire. And my friend Brian Friedman and I have been suing on behalf of these people. And they moved to, what the companies do is they move to have these things put into arbitration. They try to cover it up and all of that. What ends up happening is you get, and we've had a couple of kind of low profile wins, so to speak, but your scenario that you just laid out, where they knew it or should have known, meaning the umbrella company
Right.
had people rely on that,
Right.
and people gave up things. That is precisely what we have been filing. Kudos and hat tip to Bethany for the one who kind of originally gave Brian and I the idea of a lot of these things. And what you have kind of crystallized right there, I think, is exactly where it's headed. I will tell you, in cases where I'm kind of under orders, so I will talk more broadly, that once you get into discovery in these cases, once they have to turn over documents, it is shocking. And you'll hear fairly soon, you'll hear what I'm talking about. It's shocking how much they know, meaning the networks know about what is actually going on, and they actually want that because that fits right into how do I get eyeballs? How do I get clicks?
To a point, because yes, she was crazy on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and people even talked about this case. It's one thing to talk about it; it's another thing to see it.
I couldn't agree more. When you have the video that comes out, it's kind of crisis management 101. There is no unseeing that. There's no getting past that. And think about every scandal that you can of recent and not so recent memory. What is the biggest hurdle that all the crisis managers have always had? It's always the video. It's the thing that is going to live forever. In her case, if it had just, I keep saying this, and I don't mean this to be in deprecating just adults, but once you involved the child, it's virtually impossible to come back from that. And that's why you saw this whole, I mean, can you imagine what the financial downside is to canceling that? I mean, you know better than anybody.
We're going to get into that in a minute, and not just the financial downside. It's many, many, many millions of dollars. But now, who's going to shoulder it? Is Warner Brothers going to shoulder it, or is ABC? And we'll get into that dogfight in a minute. But I want to address two things. One is, we know the Department of Children and Family Services in Utah is already looking at the two of them, Dakota and Taylor Frankie Paul, and that it's serious enough that they've ordered a psych evaluation on both of them. They haven't done them yet, but they're going to do it. Now that this video is out, and I got to say, I would be shocked if DCFS hasn't received this video, because I know the police had it, prosecutors had it, and the court had it. And if they had it, it would be stunning to me that the police wouldn't have turned it over to DCFS. So if DCFS had
Are you
it,
saying, because I didn't know this, are you saying that at the time of the plea, they had the video?
I'm saying they had, yes, the police had this video. That's what we're told. And the police gave it to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor gave it to the court. And that's what we're told.
If that's true, then kudos to the defense lawyer for
Yeah,
the deal.
no kidding.
That's Utah Lawyer of the Year for getting the deal that she got, because I will tell you, if that had been in LA County, most prosecutors that I know anywhere in California, for everybody who talks about what a light touch California is, in California, that would have been go to state prison, don't pass go.
Yeah, and we are we are told that yes, the police got it, and they had to then turn it over to the other to the prosecutor. And so if DCFS didn't get it, that's weird. And if they did get it, why haven't they taken action yet?
Well, I'm not in the weeds on Utah law, but I would imagine they've got a mandatory.
It's basically the same as DCFS in
So if
California.
they've got a mandatory reporting, that should have been in DCFS, their equivalent of DCFS.
Well, DCFS knows about this case. I can tell you that. So,
well, how come they didn't in real time do something at the time of the plea? I mean, you have all kinds of mandatory reporting obligations, and if they had possession of it at the time, it's a question as to what happened there.
well, and you raised something that I've been thinking about for this whole week, and you raised Ray Rice. That's just what I keep thinking about with Ray Rice, because we broke that story with that video. And remember, there was smoke with Ray Rice, more than smoke. I mean, you saw a video of him pulling his then fiance out of an elevator where she seemed unconscious. And yet the NFL gave him a 2-game suspension. And then we got the video of what happened inside the elevator. And all of a sudden, the NFL is saying, oh, my God. And then they changed the suspension and threw the book at him. And then the question is, did they have that video and still do the 2-day suspension? And we've never gotten full clarity on that. Some say yes, some say no. But it does feel so much like the way we covered Ray Rice as we broke that story. And it's interesting you talked about Ray Rice right out of the gate, because that's what I was thinking about the whole week. It just feels like that.
It has the entire same kind of crisis DNA in it, in that there is initially one reaction, and then lo and behold, in this case, a lot longer amount of time elapsed, and then you have a kind of an earthquake, a mega earthquake afterwards once the video comes out. And that's one of those. By the way, I'll give you another example, a more recent example. Sean Combs, the outing of the video in the Intercontinental Hotel. I think, but for that, he never would have been prosecuted in the first place, and it changes the whole dynamic. It's literally the definition of a watershed moment.
I could not agree with you more.
So, what is it about? What is it? It kind of shows you, because you and I have seen, being the two angry men, we've seen over going into almost 5 decades here, the video changes everything in these kinds of cases. And once the video is there, and that's what's kind of been a struggle in the law in terms of the admissibility of video evidence in this AI-generated age, because now in the AI-generated age, there's a raging debate in the law as to what is the gatekeeping role of a judge when it comes to admissibility. Here you have a video, by all accounts, that appears to be completely legitimate. That video was in the hands of the prosecution, we don't know, but I'm sure you'll find out at some point, when did the DCFS get it? But it really, and now somebody, an employer, as you said, who knew all of this or could have known if they were doing their vetting. And by the way, based on discovery I've seen in these other cases, and I invoked Bethany and the reality reckoning again, it's obvious to me that your intuition, Harvey, about what they knew and when they knew it, meaning these production companies or these studios, they go through that. They know what they're dealing with. They do. Even a minor kind of a background check would have revealed these things.
So that's really the part I want to get into right now, because I find this the most interesting thing of all. So we have really good sources connected to that show. And they used to do real rigorous vetting on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And the executive producers, some of them were fired about a year ago, and new ones were brought on. What we're told is, and look, this is the reality. Television is a struggling medium right now. People have gone to YouTube, social media, And it's just a struggling medium. And, the demographics are getting older. And this is ABC. And
Which,
ABC,
by the way, I mean, I hate to say it, but I deal with these networks. ABC, to my mind, and their general counsel are, I think, head and shoulders above the others. So that's based on experience. That's based on multiple times engaging. I can't say enough good things about the general counsel over there. So that does not surprise me.
so here's what we're told. I mean, you look at ABC. One show that has really turned things around is an ABC show, Dancing with the Stars. They ended up just chucking the idea of has-been actors and singers and whatnot. And I don't mean that. That sounds disparaging, and maybe I shouldn't have said that. But there are people who are not. There were people on it who weren't particularly relevant, and they were older. They decided we're not doing that anymore. We're going to get young, relevant people and relevant on social.
By the way, you realize the number of comments you're going to generate by the talking about older guys who are no longer relevant.
I know, because us.
Yes.
But
just so everybody understands,
yeah.
we're very self-aware.
Yeah, we are totally self-aware. That's why I can say it. But look, and I don't mean, the fact is there are people who have had their day. And you bring them back, and, a lot of times people are saying, oh, my God, I love that person, and they have a second career. And good for them, and I think it's great. But they weren't getting ratings the way they wanted. And so they brought in these young, hot, relevant social media people, and it resurrected the show. And it drew an audience to the show. So everybody's kind of looking at that as a template. And it's ABC. So what do they do in The Bachelorette with this new production team, the executive producers? They bring the star of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives on, which is also a social media phenomenon, and they take the craziest person on the show, Taylor Frankie Paul. And so then what do they know about her? They see the show, I'm assuming, and hear about this 2023 incident for which she pled guilty to aggravated assault, felony aggravated assault. Easily could have checked the file, could have done more, but they didn't. So now, here's what's going on. They have shot the entire show. Only one episode is in the can, the first one that was supposed to air Sunday night. There are 3 that are in various stages of editing, and the rest have not been edited at all. They have a huge production team. The production team is going to be fired because there's nothing to edit or produce anymore. It's over. So the post-production team is going to get fired. They were expecting to have jobs. They're not going to have jobs. ABC is going to be out an enormous amount of money because of the trade outs on the show. For people who don't know, a trade out is when you see American Airlines flew our contestants here and there, or a hotel, or a venue, or a brand, that they all pay a lot of money to ABC in return for getting visibility on the show. So ABC has either gotten money or is expecting money, and that money is either going to have to be returned or they're never going to get it because there's no visibility because the show's been canceled. So they're out an enormous amount of money there. There's something else, which is that they pick The Bachelor usually from the top 4 contestants on The Bachelorette. And there are 2 people, we're told, who were the most obvious ones one of them was going to get picked. Well, none of them are going to get picked because they have no visibility. They have no fame. So now the network is going to have to either delay The Bachelor or pick somebody from a previous season, and that's going to ill affect ratings. So there is a lot of money on the line. And I can tell you a lot of screaming already and finger pointing between Warner Brothers Discovery, which produced the show, and ABC. And now the question is, who bears the loss here? How's that going to work?
Well, I will let me make a bold prediction. You're going to see either lawsuits or immediate motions to brought in arbitration, because you've kind of laid out we're not talking seven-figure, we're talking substantial eight-figure expenditures. That's number one, just expenditures in that bucket. The next bucket is there are going to be contestants suing, and they're going to sue, and they're going to sue everybody. It's going to be it's going to be a wide swath of targets. And
we should just explain, Mark. Suing because what they're saying is we relied on you to pick an appropriate bachelorette. You were negligent or even reckless in not doing your due diligence, and we suffered losses as a result. That's the theory.
And by the way, if there are, I'm going to wildly speculate here, and the reason I got this idea in my head, as I mentioned, I've got discovery in another case. When I was talking to Bethany yesterday, it had occurred to me when we were talking about this, if in fact they knew about this, and I would be shocked if they didn't, and they thought they could navigate this because the tape was not released or the case had been pled, and therefore they thought somehow it was geofenced, if you will, and it would not get out, and they made a calculation. That is where you may cross the line into punitive damages. That is where you may get what traditionally is called malice. And if that's the case, that's a monstrous, monstrous lawsuit.
So between ABC and Warner Brothers Discovery that produced it, what do you see going on there? Because that's where, one of them or both of them are going to have to incur these losses. It doesn't necessarily have to be equal, and it could be that one shoulders most of it. So how do you see that?
The first thing is there's going to be a battle of the transactional lawyers as to who is indemnifying who, where is the indemnification. The insurance companies, I guarantee you, were consulted with and will be consulted with, because you have insurance specifically project by project in order to make sure that if anything happens. Now, the insurance companies are also going to be fighting. They're going to be talking about the carve-outs. They're going to be talking about, hey, this is something you knew or should have known, therefore you waived it, and you're gonna have a phalanx of lawyers on behalf of the insurance companies, because if you think they want to willingly pay, then all you have to do is take a look at what's going on down in the Palisades or next door in Altadena. The insurance companies will be fighting. The two production companies are going to be fighting, and all of the downstream people who were on the hook for having to deal with any of this stuff are also going to be in the crosshairs. It's going to be a legal cluster F like you have never seen because of the amounts of money involved.
So does Taylor Frankie Paul get sued? Because in a way, she could say, well, I didn't really hide anything. It's not my job to do due diligence. And I even talked about this on the show, although she did kind of spin it and blame it on Dakota rather than her.
And that's exactly what, it's so funny. You just took the thought right out of my head. So does she get sued? Yes. Does she try to say, look, this isn't me? Yes. But the problem is, if they have evidence that she tried to spin it, she tried to mislead, that then becomes a factual dispute. That gets you past demur stage, potentially MSJ stage, motion for summary judgment. That buys you a trial.
Okay. The final thing that, I was thinking about last night is this is going to have implications that go way beyond The Bachelorette or The Bachelor. This will affect all of reality television, it seems to me. because now, look, networks are lawsuit averse. We know that. I know that.
You
And
know better
and
than that.
and production companies and studios, they are just scared to death of lawsuits because even if they win, they pay a fortune in legal bills. So they are so averse to it. And now that they've seen what can happen and how much money can be lost by this kind of misstep, um, I think that pendulum, which was swinging this way, where people were playing maybe fast and loose, it's going to go way to the other side. I mean, in America, the pendulum never ends in the middle. It's always on one extreme or the other. And now it's here, and I think it's going to go all the way over here. And I think they're going to be scared to death of who they cast in reality shows and some of the edge that you've seen, by them, kind of working the line, I think is going to go away because they're just so scared of what happened here could happen to them. I really believe that.
You have put your finger on exactly the panic that is running through this area. That is why I was on the phone with Bethany yesterday. That is why we talked about how this has breathed new life into the reality reckoning. And I will tell you, without revealing what case, discovery is going to be unbelievable, because if you find that they, like I have found in these cases, that they not only know it, but they use it, and they use it in a calculated way, it is going to be a bombshell.
Yeah. What does Bethany think of this?
Bethany thinks it feels like, and she should, I think, she was early money here. She was the one who talked about all this. She's the one who can coin the phrase. She's the one who brought it to my attention, to Brian's attention, and said, look at what is going on here. She lit the fire, and she periodically, when one of these things, Leah Sweeney, which is not a case that I have, but survived and got into federal court also this week, we talk about that. We talk about what has happened. All of this, if you remember, started during the strike and the fact that the reality kind of space or niche was a second-class citizen, for lack of a better term, and they were not covered. So this has resonated like you can't believe. And I give her, like I say, a hat tip, because she was early money on this. She was really talking about this when nobody was.
Yeah. This has been a crazy, crazy week. See you next week.
See you next week, Harvey. Thanks.